backed by popular demand. This is the Turnbucklepad podcast on YouTube.com. Respect wrestling or get out. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, welcome back to the Turnbucklepad podcast. And today I got a brand new guest. He's the owner and promoter of Detroit Style Wrestling. So calling in all the way from Detroit, I want you to welcome my guest, John. How you doing, John?
I'm good. How are you, Michael?
I can't complain.
Okay.
I could about the wrestling business, but I'm sure we'll get to that in this interview.
Yeah, a little bit.
So when did you start doing DSW?
Well, we've been a company for a number of years out here called the Michigan Championship Wrestling Association.
Okay.
Recently, we've been running since 2008.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we're not necessarily new, but we changed our name recently to differentiate to be different from everybody else.
I get you. So
there's too many promotions with, EWA, PWA, it's all out. So.
Yeah. Now, what are some of the things at DSW? Because it sounds to me like, because you know what you're doing and you know how the business should run, what are some of the things that you make of utmost importance when you have somebody new that comes in and wants to be a wrestler?
Well, we make sure that they're properly trained, first off. We do a lot of our scouting from the House of Truth Wrestling School and over across the bridge in Windsor at Border City Wrestling School. So.
All right. Well, do you guys have a training school?
We currently do not, but, we work closely with those schools. So.
Well, what are some of the things you find to be a struggle when you got, these young guys who've only been watching wrestling for about maybe 2 or 3 years and trying to break them and mold them? What are some of the difficulties you come across?
A lot of kids I've seen, they tend to have an ego about themselves, and it doesn't make any sense. Personally, I've been in the business for a number of years, and I know I'm not the biggest deal in the world, but a lot of these guys think they are, but they don't last long, especially not in DSW.
Do you think they get that ego from the business, or do you think they just had that personally themselves and it followed them in there?
I think it's something they've already had coming in, but like I said, they either get broken in real quick or they get out.
Yeah. Yeah, because I remember growing up, you couldn't find a wrestling school or anything like that easily. It was so the business was
impossible.
Yeah, you really had to know someone to know someone to know someone just to get to the door before you could even get into it. And back then, I'd like to think guys like that, when they came to practice and had the ego, they got their ass whooped.
Well, yeah.
And that broke the ego. So what are have you ever had any major names come and grace DSW? Maybe someone that helped out as a locker room leader type deal?
Well, we mostly deal with a lot of the local veterans and a lot of the established local people. But our main goal is the younger guys, how to have good matches and how to get over.
Yeah, that's a big part of it.
We're not the biggest company in the world, and we're fine with that. But we want to make sure that here in the Detroit area, or anyone coming to us from out of state knows that they're going to get a good match in front of a good crowd. They're going to get good footage out of it that they can show to others.
What's been one of those moments where you knew that your product, your company, the show, the story you're telling, have you had any of those special moments with fans to where it really impacted their lives and maybe gave them a value that they didn't have before?
That's a tough question. One of our biggest moments happened back in May when Sweet Willie Watts won the DSW championship from Mark Jelka, who had held it for well over 2.5 years. And it just so happened that was the day that gay marriage was legalized in the United States. And Sweet Willie, he does an ambiguous, effeminate gimmick.
So you think that reached out to the demographic?
Yeah, a lot of fans went crazy for that. It's just something that happens to coincide on their day.
The irony of it, huh?
Yeah.
What do you think about some guys now with these egos and some of the gimmicks they come up with? It just doesn't make any sense, and it gives a bad quality and a bad match. And when you got fans sitting out there who aren't into it and they're calling your spots and your moves before you even do it, I mean, I think guys like this need to go back to the drawing board or need to get out completely.
I mean, if they're humble and they're just trying to learn, there's nothing wrong with that. You just gotta throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks. But if they have an attitude about it, or they think they're better than someone else, that doesn't fly. It doesn't work. It's everyone's job in the car to work together to bring the best possible product for the fans.
Very true. Very true. Do you find things like this not being practiced as much as it should with all these other people who think they could be a promoter and a wrestler?
I've seen it. I definitely discourage it. So.
Understandable. Well, what made you get into wrestling? What made you like it?
Honestly, it's something I've loved since I was a young kid, and I found the House of Street Wrestling School, so I trained there, and I've been working ever since.
That's how it is for a lot of people, isn't it? It starts out from when we're young, but it will follow you if you love it enough.
Exactly.
Now,
get that itch.
In Detroit, do you guys have an athletic commission in Detroit?
We do not.
Now, I'm sure you've heard in Illinois, because this is part of the problem in Illinois with too many feds popping up, is because there's no athletics commission, therefore they can pretty much get away with it.
Yeah, we have the same exact problem here in Detroit. Actually, the athletic commission exists, but it doesn't take care of professional wrestling. It hasn't since 1993. I mean, there's been backyard promotions popping up all over the place. There's been, guys who halfway train, like, I know more than, so-and-so, I'm going to open up a promotion.
Yeah, it gets a little discouraging after a while, doesn't it?
It's hard. It's hard to deal with.
Yeah, because you got all this garbage, overpowering the guys who've worked many, many years and worked very, very hard at it, and you got all these other half-ass marks out here in the way. It's just kind of disrespectful to the business.
Absolutely. They should be buying tickets, not booths.
Yeah. One of the things that I'm a little curious about, and I want to know what your opinion on this matter is, have you noticed, and not that I want to put over the WWE or anything like that, but I've noticed that the women's division is doing much better in their matches, their moves, and their storylines than the actual men's division is. Are you seeing that trickle and happen within the independents? Like the women's division is getting stronger?
I've attended some Shimmer wrestling events, and they're just phenomenal. And many of the women there are going to the WWE. They're going to TNA. They're going to Ring of Honor. Women's wrestling right now is probably the hottest it's ever been, no pun intended.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you got all these females. I mean, did you see that match with Sasha Banks and Bayley? I think it's like 2 months ago.
That was incredible.
Yeah, I felt like a wrestling fan all over again how well they did that, and it's hard to come across that feeling with a lot of what you see.
The story they told and the way they told it was very, very well done. And huge props to both those ladies, huge props for WWE as a whole for allowing them to do that.
Yeah, and it was great to see. It's really hard for a lot of us nowadays to actually get that feeling like we're an excited wrestling fan all over again because you're on the other side of the curtain now. You know about it.
Absolutely.
So with that being said, your favorite moment in your career when you came into the business?
Probably I'm primarily a manager, but I managed a match that had fought Jim Duggan that featured him, and that was just cool. That was just like,
He was the first guest we had on the Turnbucklepad from the WWE Hall of Fame.
yeah, I mean, he's just a nice guy, easy to work with. I can't say enough good things about the guy.
Usually those guys like that, they walk into the room and you're just like starstruck because you know these are guys that made it. They know what they're doing.
Right.
So you go to the light, you could say.
Yeah, exactly.
What's been like
But
one of
he's
your...
the guy who pays the way, so you gotta respect that.
Yeah. Yeah, even if he's not with the E anymore or anything, his name itself is enough to know where he's been and what he's done. Champ or not. Some people that are from the old school, you just can't help but respect and listen to them.
Absolutely.
What's been one of your least favorite moments after getting into the business?
I've had so many good times. It just cancels out all the bad times I've had. Whether I'm working in front of 2 people or 200 people, 2 million people, it doesn't matter. I still go out there and give everything I have, and that boils down to what Detroit style wrestling is all about, is giving the fans more than their money.
Well, that's also good business, too. It's how you keep them coming back, right?
Absolutely.
I've heard Stephanie McMahon say that philanthropy is going to be the future of marketing.
I can believe that. I mean, think about it this way. If your company donates to, whatever charity, that charity's going to be excited. They're going to advertise for you.
Yeah, it's good karma.
It's good. Yeah, and it's good for your public image. People will say, "Oh, well, they care about people."
Do you think a lot of companies would be doing better if they were kind of following that formula?
I think so. You could, help whatever children's organization, and you'll find some fans for life doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, you will. I mean, a lot of these fans are never going to have the feelings and the memories that we have from watching it from like the 80s and so forth.
Yeah.
They're never going to understand what that is and how that feels.
Exactly. So it's up to us to give back, and they'll give back to us in turn.
Yeah. I've always told parents that if you're going to bring your kids to a show, go to a local wrestling show. That's the one time your kids can misbehave and have an attitude and boo their favorite guy and get it out of their system, and they'll go home and sleep very, very well.
Absolutely. And maybe eat some junk food as well.
Yeah, that too. That too. Well, we got a question for you, John. We asked this question to all of our guests on the Turnbuckle Pad. What advice would you give to somebody new or somebody that wants to get into the business?
I would say, first of all, find a good wrestling school with a trainer that has been around a long time, has been able to make a living in the business, and has a track record for training good people. Never stop learning. Keep your mouth shut and your ears open. And be humble. Stay humble.
Any do's and don'ts you want to share with people?
What's that?
Any do's and don'ts that you want to add to that?
Always show up early.
Be on time.
That's a big one. Be the first one there, last one.
Well, it makes sense. It makes a whole lot of sense. So if the fans,
don't be a jerk.
if the fans wanted to find you, or they want to learn more about DSW and the talent you have, how can they find you?
They can find us on Facebook. They can find us at, we have a like page where it's Detroit Style Wrestling. We also have like a regular page where it's DSW Pro. They can find us on Twitter at, at DSW313. And on Instagram at Detroit Style Wrestling.
Very cool. Well, fans, I really hope you enjoyed our time today with John. It's always great to sit back and talk with a owner/promoter/manager. It's nice to get the insights and the views of what someone in that position goes through. At least that way, if somebody wants to come into the business, they'll be educated on what the respectful thing is to do and not to go off their own pride and their own ego.
Absolutely.
So, John, we thank you very much for taking the time out to come on the show and speak with us for a little while. Fans, you heard how to find them. They're not a hard company to find. In the meantime, this has been my guest John from DSW, and I'm Mike Stover, and we're out.